My perception of it is that the vacuum that was created once BMF was really rendered inactive, because Meech going didn't mean the end of everything or whatever, but obviously the part he played, leadership is a major component of any organization. And not that there weren't others who were leader capable, but Meech's way of doing things was sort of mystical in that he operated with impunity. He really did. We used to have these debates where, he and I, where I would try to caution him about not just, you're doing what you're doing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not initially saying, chill out. Not initially. Initially, I'm saying, I'm seeing what you're doing, and you could be more mindful about how you're doing what you're doing. And not so much in terms of the movement of whatever it is, you're fucking with, but the way that you are guiding these guys, the way that you have them under the impression that even though it does look as though to even the youngest of them, the most uninitiated of them, because then most of them were just kids that were missing familial structure, no fathers. This was like 80% were no fathers, and mothers who were either on drugs or just struggling mothers or whatever have you.
The BMF members.
Yeah, the core, Atlanta core, There were a lot of peripheral cats, whatever, but the core, that was basically the dynamic, That, a lot of no dads. So he was like the dad, And the jewelry was his, the BMF chains, those were his. The cars were his, essentially, you know what I mean? Cats had their own cars or whatever have you, whatever, but the Rolls Royces and the Phantoms and the Bentleys and shit like that, those are his cars, right? So he provided, and as I've mentioned before, and anybody that was present or even intermittently present knows you didn't spend money in Meech's presence, right? So with him being that representing that within the group, that father image, that father figure, my thing was you're giving them the impression that you've got it all figured out. You're doing what you're doing in such a way that even the youngest of them is like, so what's gonna happen when they come? Oh, he's got it figured out. Even though it looked like we're doing a lot, this is extra, and we're certainly like going out of our way to draw attention, and because he did what he did, like we discussed, he said on the conversation that I shared with people, that was part of his attraction. He had the balls to do it, to stand on the couches and shine like new money, I used to like to say, and attract the types of clientele that enabled him to be able to move at the level that he was moving at. But of course, there was a tremendous amount of risk with that degree of exposure and so forth. There aren't very many people who would put themselves, in a leadership position under that type of light and subject themselves to that type of scrutiny and so forth, So no one could understand how it was, no matter how close they were. They just followed direction. But obviously, we've talked since those things have happened, and when I say we, I mean other members of the fam, and we've talked. Same conversations I revisited from back then. So reflecting back, because I knew that these times would come and that they would go and eventually come back, and I'd be able to go, okay, so now remember when we were standing in the driveway of the house, and I said to you, So how do you think all of this ends? And he said, well, they come, they get us, we go do about 10 years, come back home and, do something with our money. Okay. So how has it worked out? Like, how close to what you perceived has it turned out to be? And, of course, it was nothing like that. Of course, there's no money to come back to. First thing they do is take the money. His leadership made them create these ideas in their mind that it was going to go this way. Even when it went bad, it would be okay. His leadership enabled him to do that. His audacity, he had a lot of audacity, and his audacity enabled him to be able to do that and be able to produce, that type of a movement with that type of bravado and ostentatiousness. His ego, and his bravery. I mean, I would say to him, you got to chill out. You got to slow down. You got to take it easy. And he would say, one time he said to me, we were in the London hotel in Times Square, and he said, "What they gonna do, Cavario? Lock me up for balling?" And I said, yeah, they're gonna lock you up for balling. That's exactly what they're gonna do. And when he did what he did the way that he did it, it drew people. First, it repelled them, and like he said in the conversation. First, it was, when I first saw you doing what you was doing, I was like, y'all crazy. But after a while, quote unquote, you get down with the "we can't beat them, join them" program. And it drew a lot of people, and it increased the movement of material in the city, in Atlanta, exponentially. It created a vacuum, like all the money was being drawn to Atlanta. But it took somebody who had the balls and the audacity to put themselves on the forefront like that, to take the kind of risks that were necessary to be able to draw that type of opportunity monetarily. Once what happened and they pulled them off the streets and so forth, him getting what he got at that point made, within the family, made a lot of people kind of be, obviously it makes sense to be cautious. And obviously they're not going to be finished or satisfied with just having him when they know that the infrastructure is still running, there's still infrastructure. So we have to keep a lower profile, but we still got to be us, because we can't waver. We got to show them that we still us, like adapting his attitude, again, referencing one of the conversations that we had, where it's like we've been out days and days and days back to back, and tired. I'm tired. He's tired. Everybody's tired. And I said, "Yo, bro, what are we going out again for?" And he said, "We don't want them to think that we ran out of money last night, last week, or last month. Or last month, last night, or last week." Something like that. And that's what I said. I said, you're subjecting yourself and everyone else to additional rigor, emotionally, psychologically, physically, additional wear and tear, running around, smoking, drinking, rolling, so that an ambiguous they won't be under the impression that last night you threw all the money you had, because people do that. Are you serious? Do you recognize the severity of what it is that you're contending with? But that was his audacity. That was, his bravado. He was like that. Like, I always commented that, you can't get revenge on poverty, right? You can't change what was, right? So whatever degree of destituteness or struggle or poverty you faced in Southwest Detroit as a kid, no matter how it made you feel, how valueless it made you feel, how much it hurt you to see your mother struggling and, you know, your siblings in need of things or whatever. No amount of overdoing it now is going to change that. You know, when you grow up in that kind of environment, you tend to develop like a, what do they call it, entitlement. And you feel like somebody owes you something, you know? And I'm not saying that he felt like somebody owed him something. I think he may have more so entertained that he deserved more. And he was willing to do what was necessary to get it, no matter what it took or no matter what it cost. So all of that went into what drove him, in my opinion, in my close proximity assessment, to doing the things he did the way he did and drawing the type of attention and type of commerce, the type of bread to Atlanta the way that he did. So when he was removed and all of this hyper inflation, all this money coming in, all this bread coming in, is like now people who had not considered going to the degrees that he had gone to see just how much money could be made, now they were aware of it. Mexicans were aware of it. Everybody else was aware of it. And now he was gone. They weren't about to go, oh, well, it was good while it lasted. They came. They came, and they came, and they, you know, I mean, you can't trust everybody the way you could trust Meech. Meech is a person of high integrity, obviously. He didn't harm anybody, right? He didn't tell anybody. He certainly could have. He did what he did and took what came behind it.
So to be clear, I just want the audience to be clear. So after BMF's indictment and they're off the streets, you're a resident of Atlanta, so you're still there. You're at this point running Don Diva magazine.
Yeah, I mean, I was running it when we met.
So you're, despite not being involved in criminal activity yourself,
Anymore,
you're more attuned to what's going on because you're in that circle.
I'm a genetically engineered gangster. I'm attuned to this.
And when you say they came, you mean that the Meech and BMF was pushing, I don't know if you want to give an estimated amount of
2,500 joints a month.
And that goes away. That's $150, $100 million a month going to Mexico. That's a vacuum that they're just not going to let sit there. So you're saying you know for a fact that Mexicans were sent up with the express purpose to replace Meech.
Well, I understand. I mean, I would have to be involved to know for a fact. But I was born and raised in this thing my entire life. I know how it works. And the fact of the matter is, you don't let $100 million sit around at no cost, like, period. So you can't trust everybody the way you can trust Meech. You know, so yeah, you're gonna close that circle or that gap as quickly as you can. And the quickest way is to send your own people, have a couple of people you can trust, and have those people be your go-betweens. But it's not about somebody coming to, you know, LA or south of the border. It's not about that anymore. It's like, boom, we're here. We're in, you know, these other outlying counties, and yeah, come and see us, and we're here. Because we know you don't have the logistical skill set that it would take to get from where we are, where we were, to here like he did. You know what I'm saying? So here we are. And that's because obviously there wasn't any less coke being moved after he was gone. There was no less being moved, so, and it wasn't another him. So the obvious thing would be that they closed the space, and they did, that's what I would do. So any thinking hustler would do. That's what you would do. You know, when I hit cats out of town and You know, something happened where they started to underperform or something happened. I didn't go, damn, that money sure was good coming out of that town. I went to the town. I already know that my material does well there. So I went to the town and I established my own setup so I can continue to get that money. I'm obviously at a higher profit now because now I'm here.
Okay, one more sub question on this one and then we'll move on. So as a guy from New York who, by your own admission, engaged in different drug activities in other states.
Reed Raised by Wolves.
And you're running down Diva, so you're moving around the country, you're meeting different people. So you're someone who can recognize faces from different cities.
Absolutely.
So you're living in Atlanta at this time when BMF is there, but you had been there kind of.
I'd been there. I bought my house in '96.
Was there a point where you being in Atlanta, and I assume you chose Atlanta partially because you thought it was kind of like out of the way, or I'm going to be able to get out of the circuit I was in. Did it surprise you or shock you or talk about how many guys' faces from other cities were you like, oh, he's from Baltimore, what's he doing here?
Initially, in the mid '90s, I started going. I think I went the first time I went to Atlanta was like for my 23rd birthday, and initially you didn't see that. When I first got to Atlanta, it was guys with silk shirts or rayon shirts. I don't know, you know, open down to here and finger waves that went up in the air like that, and you know, like that's what you saw. You know, then you had your little around 97 or so. You know, here and there you would see cats that were moving around, so they'd come from other cities, but not a whole hell of a lot of it. The Freaknik was what really brought cats' attention from other states to Atlanta. But you didn't see that much, and they would come for Freaknik, they would leave because they would figure beyond the manicness of Freaknik, there was nothing else really to be in Atlanta for. They didn't know about the money to be made in Atlanta, you know. Besides, there were a bunch of different places. I had actually sent material to Atlanta in '92, but you know, my lieutenant came back and was like, "Do we really need to go all the way to Atlanta when we can get the same money in Baltimore and, you know, other closer places that were just a couple of hours away?" So, you know, but yeah, I didn't start to see that until really early 2000s. I didn't start to see that.
A direct result of BMF.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think
BMF took advantage of
BMF was probably their presence, immersion there. You know, I mean, BMF. I mean, Blue already shared that with people. That the BMF, that entity, was born in Atlanta. You know,
out of guys, it was specifically guys from different cities coming together.
Mm-hmm. It was born in Atlanta in like 2000. And, you know, did the Flenory brothers exist before that? Yeah, obviously. But BMF.
The phenomenon of a bunch of guys from different parts of the country being together in this massive.
That really like 2000. Maybe 2002, maybe late 2001, that kind of started to kind of come together with all these different guys from all these different places. Like, 2003, around the time I got around, I think that was really beginning to kind of snowball, where, you know, because in the time that I came into it, there were, I was witness every day was. I was like, who's that?
New people.
I was like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Where the fuck did they come from? And wasn't that the guy that was with the guy? And where's the guy? The guy is gone, but this guy is still around. And then that guy would hang out for a week or two, and I guess he'd get burnt out on the partying, but then he'd come back in another week or two, and he'd have more guys with him, and then you might not see him no more, but you see them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yo, what? I've never seen anything like this before in my life.
It almost sounds like they were selling kilos, and the whole thing was being run like a spot that's selling rocks or something. On Friday night, the one drug user comes over with his friend, and then that person runs out of money, but the friend stays, but it's at kilos instead of dimes.
That's an interesting analogy. It was very strange for me coming from familial structure.
Speaking from someone who had been a part of long-running extra-legal activities, usually it's the same people. This is so-and-so, and
Absolutely.
he comes, and he goes over
Yeah,
here.
there's no interlopers. There are no these random people coming and going. And the way that he embraced people was remarkable. His gift, his skill set was unique. His ability to make people feel a part of, unique, very unique, and genuine. He's one of the kindest people that I've ever met.
And it was sincere kindness.
Yes, it was. He didn't want to see anybody not okay. And that's, no matter how simple anyone's processes were, that they could sense. That they could sense. They could tell this guy genuinely gives a fuck about me, you know? That's the way they felt. And now when I would say to him, you know, these guys think you got a master plan, you know? I said this to him. I said, they think you have a master plan. They think that you have some kind of, they understand that the potential of moving around at this level has its own built-in detriment and inevitabilities, right? But they also understand that moving around the way that is being moved around, it increases those potentialities significantly. They get that too. But they're comfortably following you because they think you have a plan. And he said, man, they grown-ass men. They grown-ass men, Cavario, man. They know what they're doing. I said, no, brother, they don't know what they're doing. They know that you know what you're doing. They figured you figured. That's why people fall in line behind people who make money. Because they figured you figured something out that I've not been able to figure out. You must be extra smart. So they think that you have some kind of plan. So there's only a few people who would remember this, but one day we used to go to we used to sometimes stop at not IHOP. What's that place I can stand? Waffle House. All right, and we were in a Waffle House one time, and you know, obviously I don't eat at Waffle House, right? So I'm sitting there, and you know, ordering whatever they order, because we were about to, I don't know, maybe go back to the crib, or maybe we was on our way out. I don't know what it was, but we were sitting in there. There's probably about 15 of us, and so we sitting there, and I took out a pen and I was drawing on a napkin, and I drew a planet, and then I drew a bunch of smaller stick men going from a small stick man to a larger stick man. And then there was a really big stick man, and he was holding a hatch that was cut out of the planet. And he's holding the hatch, and he goes, there's a bubble. I drew a bubble, and it said, come on, y'all, they coming. And you see, I had all these little lines expressing urgency and nervousness and concern and nervous energy, whatever, on the littler men coming towards the hatch. And then, you know, I just sat there and just, you know, because every time we were together, I would just, because I've gone through this so many times, and I know how this goes. So I'm always contemplative. I'm always just looking, because I'm trying to take it all in, because I know it's fleeting, you know? So I'm always just like looking and just looking at everybody and just taking their faces in. It's like just trying to drink in the moment, you know, because I know that it's not going to last, right? So I quietly slided to probably Bull, and then he looks and he giggles, and probably slides it to Tito, and he looks and he giggles, and then he probably slid it to Ills, and he looks and he laughs, and you know what I mean? But they got it. They all got it. These are the kinds of things that I guess they tried not to think about. But, you know, these are my brothers, these are my homies, these are my brothers. These are all good people, man. They're good people. You know, these are good people, man. It's just circumstances they were in, and choices that they were left to believe or led to believe they had to make, or were the best choices they could make or whatever, but they were good people.
And then we'll finish up, and just as a little asterisk note, for those regular people who get up at 7 a.m. and work hard and, you know, earn their money the hard way, which is most of America, when they look at drug operations like this from the outside, and they feel like
through the media, by the way, they're not looking at them from the outside through their own lens. They're looking at it through propaganda and media.
Absolutely. And for those who say, well, a drug dealer and they're destroying the community, etc., at this level, you're totally disconnected from low-level drug users, right? It's just a package moving from one house into a car, and then you get some money.
Although they're aware, because most of their mothers are strung out.
So how are those guys, they're not even processing that at this point in their life?
It's cognitive dissonance. They're holding these two opposing ideas in their mind at the same time. That, you know, this is a way to a good life, and at the same time, I know this is destroying lives. But, you know, it's gonna happen anyway, and I could either sit on the sidelines and struggle, or I can take advantage of this pervasive condition that is not going to change whether I don't do it or not. Nobody's offering me any other greater opportunities. And look at the camaraderie I have. I never had a strong family before. I never had brothers who cared about me before. We moved in a unit. Nobody went to the bathroom by themselves. Cats never felt more protected in their lives, not by their own parents. So, it was that.
That was good. One second. Maybe forget what I was going to ask. Then we'll move on from BMF.
This Big Meech. Raise Our Wolves is a must-read, man. You need to read it twice to understand and fully grasp where Cavario is coming from.
Of a guerrilla hustler. Intro. As a child, in the constant presence of gangsters, I overheard a lot. I remember hearing it said that it's better to be feared than to be loved. I remember gangsters who tried to live on love, and I remember that it almost always ended badly for them. But then, many of the feared didn't fare too well either. I remember an afternoon in a Harlem classroom long ago. After collecting a writing assignment from me, my first grade teacher, whose name I no longer recall, said, "You write well, Cavario. You could be a writer." I remember sneering and remarking, "A writer? I'm gonna be a gangster."
The block getting scarred up, rob 'em. Meet you up Edgecombe, the dead zone. Base heads is happy, crooks is tacky, $5 hustlers, sharp as fuck, rockin' khaki. Niggas in the hallway, raw way. One light out, waiting to stick up the slide to the hideout. Gangsters been blowing piff, we got an older gift, live it. Bad time and man, get time, I'm only average when I'm fucking. But far as that let go, I'm strutting. 100 pellets in your face, chuckling. Niggas is niggas, but that ain't me, I'm a super nigga.